don't really want to paint your sky over your mountain, or your mountain over the sky. You know what I mean? Too much paint is almost always a bad thing. Hi, I'm Kevin Hill, and today we're going to do a nice winter scene, but we're going to do it only with a palette knife. It should be interesting and a little bit of a challenge. If you're looking forward to seeing it and you'd like to see more, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more painting videos. All right, let's get started. Now, as you can see, I've got a kind of a big color mixed up here. Took up half the palette. Let's get rid of that. Put that just right there. Okay, I've got some clear gel. Otherwise, it's just purple. A little bit of a purple mixed up. Now, I've got nothing on my canvas. You could put clear gel and white on your canvas if you want to. It's not necessary. I'm just going to mix in the clear gel with my colors. I'm going to start here in the sky, and I'm going to scrape it on. What else are you going to do, right? This is going to be, for me at least. Now, for you, it doesn't have to be. You can use whatever you want, and I can't wait to see your version. It's going to be fun. So you can use a brush or a palette knife. Just share using the hashtag on the screen, and I'll grab it and put it in the next video if I see it. I know it's not a lot of time, but it is fun to see your paintings. But for me today, I think my point was, for me today, I am going to use exclusively the palette knife, nothing else. And if you need a palette knife, run to the website and pick one up. That is one thing, they don't wear out very quickly. One palette knife and you should be set for years. There. I like this one. It's got a nice bit of flex to it, and it helps. That's pretty. Just finishing, scraping up just the mountain here, trying to make a sketch, which we did accomplish there. And also this removes the sky, because you don't really want to paint your sky over your mountain, or your mountain over the sky. You know what I mean? Too much paint is almost always a bad thing. Now, when you're palette knife painting, this is just something that you do. You have to put it on thick to get the texture, and then you scrape it off with a palette knife to just, so you can put the next layer on. There. Okay, so that canvas is good and clean. We are not going to be using any kind of shop towels today to wipe this off. This is just palette knife. So that's as dry as we're going to get it today. Right up here, I'm going to allow this gray to mix with my mountain undercolor, just like this. These mountains are fairly sharp, They're quite a big part of the painting, so I want them to be sharp. Because this palette knife is pretty flexible, I can easily get in here and blend, just by pushing down and mushing. Hey, one tip. Don't use a canvas with a stretcher bar down the middle. It would just not work real well at all. What would happen is the palette knife would just constantly press against that canvas, and it would make it to where it's just, you would see that line. It would be really challenging. So just avoid that kind of canvas altogether. Nice. There, I think that works. I'm going to stop and get a little more white and just add a little softness down here to the bottom so it's not quite as dark, but I do like having it dark up here. Now, one challenge, or one just, hey, watch out for this. Because you're palette knife painting, you may want to come in here with a big broad edge and, boop, boop, and make your mountain like that. Don't do that. Get in here with a point and make a bunch of little peaks. That will make your mountain infinitely more interesting than if you get in with the big broad side, because that broad side is it's too long. It's like, what is that? Almost 1.5 inches or so across. That's too much, and you'll get just a flat top to your mountain, or just one big flat angle. We want a lot of little angles, which will suggest detail without us having to do anything, really. Oh, it's good stuff. Now over here, we are going to make this area misty, so just kind of keep that in mind. Now it's time to start highlighting this mountain. Now hopefully you took as much of this white, or as much of this gray off as possible, because that makes it so much easier to highlight. Now you could honestly thin this down with just maybe 5% clear gel, but I don't know that it's really necessary. I think you're probably better off just, controlling the paint underneath there. So one thing I'm not going to do is just come down with one or two broad strokes. I'm going to try my best to get all these little cracks and details in more or less by using the point of the knife. Now, if you're interested at all with how to create mountains with a palette knife, I think I've got a video that I did not too long ago, which was the mountains with a knife versus with a brush. What are some of the differences and how to use both tools? So that may be interesting for you to check out after you're done watching this. There. I got this tinted. I don't know if I said this or not. I got this tinted with just a little bit of our red, and I took away my clear gel because I don't really want to be thinning anything else out right now. That is a good tip because if it's on your palette, it ends up in your paint. Ask me how I know. There. This is a little, not necessarily tedious, but it's like, oh, you got to watch out. You don't want to get so much gloppiness. Well, you know what? Does it really matter? If you get too much gloppiness, just take your palette knife and scrape it off and you're good to go again. That's pretty cool. So actually, I think when it comes to palette knife painting, because it's all the same stroke, it's all the same texture, it's pretty easy to cover your mistakes or issues that you may have. Smooth that out just a little. Don't want it to be too rough at all, so we'll smooth again. Now we will probably be coming back with some, in fact, I don't know. It's kind of it's a balancing game. It doesn't just get there in one step. It takes several steps. So I need to be patient. That's what I'm trying to say. So much of the time we just like to rush right through details, or rush right up to the details. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's better to stop and slow down in the background areas, because they'll set you up for success instead of fighting the underpainting, fighting the background details. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to get this first layer of highlight on to where I'm pleased with it, and then we'll go to add on the extra bits and pieces. Do you think we can get away with some yellow? I would love to have just glimmering sunlight off of this mountain. I don't know. I don't want green. We'll try it, maybe. Maybe we will try. And let's just hit this one with a little snow. I'm not going to really do too many brown rocks in this. I really want it mostly kind of snow covered. It's a snow painting, it's a winter painting. There. That's pretty, isn't it? So we'll just continue doing, oops, kind of globby. We'll just continue doing this. Won't really do much else. We'll jump back when we have something a little more interesting, a little different. Probably be the shadows. So now I've got a nice kind of a soft blue-gray. I just took a second to mix it up with a palette knife. You get a lot, you get a lot of paint there when you mix with a palette knife quickly. So that's kind of cool. But now we're going to just apply this to this side of the mountain. Now a lot of this is going to actually be misted. We're going to blend that with our blender knife. It'll look good though. It'll fit with the theme. I mean, look, the sky, it's not smooth, but it still looks great. There, at least I think it looks great. It's okay to be happy with your paintings. I think I mentioned that a lot, or some, in that beginner video. Hopefully you checked out that beginner video. It should be the one previous to this one that you're watching. It was a lot of effort, but you guys seem to enjoy it. So if you haven't already seen it, definitely go check it out. There we go. Ooh, don't get too crazy. It's almost too... Hey, look, you can just scrape this off and get a smoother texture. See this? You're not locked into any one way. See that? Look at that. Good stuff. Look at that. Smooth it out. It doesn't have to be perfect all the time. Use the small edge, the back edge, the handle, whatever you want to use. There. That is excellent. Hey, I tell you what, though. One trick that will be really rewarding if you use it is have a baby wipe standing by. It doesn't matter how clean you are. You're always going to get your fingers messy when you paint with a palette knife. So have that baby wipe just where you can get it. There. Other than that, you should be good. Hey, at least cleaning up is going to be easy, isn't it? Wipe, done. I'm looking forward to that. That's easy. Who says acrylics are easier to clean up than oils? Just use a palette knife. There. So I'm trying to get those like kind of crazy textures, those like purposely sharp diagonal lines like that. A lot of mountains are shaped like that, and the ridges catch the snow, and that's kind of the look I'm going for. So now I've got just a little bit of peach color. Not much. See that? It's just right there, and it's going to get green pretty quick. But I just want to touch in using just the point of the knife. If you're ever curious where, let me wipe this off. Where's the detail round part of the knife? It's literally right there, the point. And see what I mean about my... Yeah, I'm gonna have to wipe off not only my hands, but my palette knife. Keep that baby wipe close, because let me tell you, once you hit oil paint, it just spreads everywhere. There. Is this subtle and not worth it? Perhaps, but I just kind of wanted to show you adding some color. Just if you want to add color, you can. I don't think I'm going to go a whole lot further because, to be honest, I'm very pleased with this mountain. It's not perfect, but I do believe that we've got us a mountain that will work in our landscape today. But this warm color tossed around doesn't hurt anything, you know. Until it turns green. Then it hurts something. But until that, we're okay. Okay, good enough. I'm going to stop right there while I still like it. And I'm going to just, honestly, this is already kind of looking misty just because you see I put a little bit of, oh, did I tell you that? I put a little bit of, this is just a kind of a gray, honestly very similar to what we had there in the underpainting. And I just added a crack or two. Just felt like it needed it. No big deal. Honestly, that's about it right there. Just kind of adding those cracks with the slope, of course, with the slope of the mountain. You don't want to do it the other way around. It wouldn't look right. So, anyway. But by not doing that down here, it kind of already looks misty. So I don't know if there's really anything else we need to do to this. Maybe just a little bit of just a light gray. Half the work when you're palette knife painting is mixing the paint on the palette. Because you got to kind of do a lot more colors when you're palette knife painting. They don't just automatically happen. Like when you're painting with a brush, you get more variation kind of automatically. You don't get quite as much of that when you're palette knife painting. Of course, it's still more than acrylic painting, which is quite literally nothing, because it's already dry underneath. This remains wet, although we do scrape it off a lot. Excellent. Kind of misty. You know, this just doesn't need to be perfect or anything too crazy. You can just scrape through with your knife like that to kind of show the underpainting off again. Looks good. Actually, a little more dark. Watch this. A little bit more of our dark, misty color. Just grab everything, even that won't hurt it. And let's put that kind of dark, misty right over here. Oh, this is going to be good stuff. A little atmosphere built into this painting. So now I've got a nice soft gray, and honestly this was kind of just, I mushed a whole bunch of stuff that was here in the middle of the palette, mushed it together, and added some white. We actually got a nice color. So much time is spent trying to mix up the perfect color. What do we do today? We just slap everything together and hope it works out. Palette knife painting is fun because it can teach you a lot of different things about color and value that you might not learn so easily with the regular brush painting, because it's a little more haphazard. You know what I mean? You kind of get it. It's a little bit haphazard, and that's a wonderful thing. It's kind of fun. But you have to be flexible and work with what happens, sort of. I mean, you know, you're in control mostly, I should say. Mostly. Not perfect, though. It will not come out exactly the way that you want it to. And that is okay. That is absolutely okay. As long as we're not too uptight and we're not too worried about it. It's okay. Just to kind of let it happen. It's kind of fun. There. This kind of comes up the mountain like that. Wiping my knife off quite a bit. Because sometimes you get too much paint on the knife and you end up painting when you want to blend. This is my blender brush today. There. This is the do everything tool today. There we go, all the way up and out. Oh, this works, doesn't it? It just simply works. Use the back side if you want to just get a different angle for your hand to get in there. A little different. It's just up to you. But that is nice. Remember, there's no medium or anything down there at all. It is dry. And that affects the way the paint goes on. You can add some clear gel if you want to. It's no right or wrong way to do this. You can always scrape away anything that's kind of unnecessarily thin or causing you problems. Just scrape it away. It's palette knife painting. Good. See this kind of aggressive slope? I'm liking that a lot, really. What if we did just a few, kind of continuing with this, just do a few more, like little ranges, like tree, can't speak, that's okay. That's because I'm painting and I'm concentrating. Tree lines. I knew I'd find the right word eventually. That, to me, is interesting. We'll finesse this a little bit and dial it in, but it's not going to take a whole lot. I think it's going to be super pretty. There. Is this perfect? No, not at all. But it's starting just to give the impression that there's something happening here with a little movement. And it's exciting. Let's get some more going up this mountain, or add it a little darker on this side. Now I'm going to mix up, let's see, just mix up a soft, not too much red, actually, not too much red at all, because red is a foreground color. So if you use it in the background, use it very sparingly. I just want to warm my white up slightly. Okay, a little blue worked its way in there. I'll live with that. I'm just going to scoop up actually quite a bit. So let's think about, and go ahead and start laying in some highlight here to the back. Push down real hard. See, the actual pressure that you're putting on the knife makes as much difference, as honestly anything when it comes to knife painting. This is probably like the #1 thing you can do to change the effect. If you put light pressure, you get those open textures. If you put a lot of pressure, then you get a more beautiful kind of smooth look. Well, not necessarily more beautiful, just smooth look, depending on, if that's what you want. Of course, right here, painting snow, it's beautiful. Yes, I am having fun. It's fun to do something different for a change, isn't it? Of course, it's fun to do stuff that's not at all different as well. It doesn't really matter, does it? But it's fun anyways. Yes. Get some of those shadows coming in, but the more you touch it, honestly, not so much the muddier it gets, but just the softer. The more you touch it, the softer it gets. And to a point, it will become muddy, but it's going to take a little bit because all these colors sort of are in the same family anyways, if you know what I mean. And I do want it to look a little bit muted here in the background, so I'm good with that. Borrow some of that gray, bring it in there. Excellent. See that? Now this is a valley here, so we want to actually, here, look at, how do you like my second palette? We'll grab some of our color and stick it right there. And it's fun to get excited. That's the whole point, right? There. I think that works. You've seen enough of that. We're going to actually be putting in some beautiful trees. Let's do that right now. Let's start working in some beautiful little distant trees. These are actually going to be fairly dark as they are coming closer. Darker color. We're using both color and contrast to get us some depth in this painting. And it's important that you use both. You don't want just one or the other. It won't work. Well, it'll work, but it won't work as good. There. It's okay to start adding, honestly, just a little bit of our burnt umber in with this as well. Just a little. See, that starts to warm it up and bring it closer. That is good stuff. Very good stuff. We're going to have a lot of umber and actually some ochre probably in some of our foreground trees. That's what these are. We're starting to paint in kind of honestly, a little distant tree line right here. The rest of this is tree line, but it's all kind of mushed together. I want to start picking out some detail here. With just the tip of the palette knife. We can work that in. Now I'm just going to create a few trees here, just out of this big pile of dark. This is where it's really going to get interesting. Create some contrast. Now we don't want these as dark as possible. So you'll see my color is not black. It's kind of a blue-gray, And I think that works real well. Cool. This is so important that we get just a few of these in. They're going to make this painting feel a little more full of depth. Come on. You would think I would be able to come up with a better word. A little bit more, just depth in the painting. That's the way that it's going to feel when we have this all in. think that's going to work. And yes, it's okay to ramble, even if you're not filming. You can ramble. Nobody's going to be around to know. Look at this. I think we can work with that. To me, I like that. It's good contrast. It's kind of all we need. Kind of all we need. It's pretty. All right. Now over here we've got some larger trees. I want to start adding just a touch of our ochre in there. Good. Now this is going to turn it a little green, of course, which is great for the evergreens, but we want to be careful to limit that green. We don't want it anywhere it shouldn't be. All right, right here. I'm going to just give myself a tree trunk. Make sure you're pretty much happy with that background before you start doing this. And then we can just literally start adding in the branches. There, it works. I think that really, really works. See how you can kind of just pull both sides there and get a decent effect. And that pretty much gets you what I'd say like 80-90% of the way there. And then once that's done, you just wipe your knife off, use the point of the knife, and simply work in all of this extra detail. Anything you like. It totally works. You can probably spend about a minute or two on each tree and get a perfectly reasonable result for this style of painting. A little more smudgy and impressionistic. There. Honestly, it looks fairly detailed just because of the rough texture of it. Pretty interesting, huh? This one could be shorter or taller, doesn't really matter. Let's go a little shorter. Because we still have some tall ones, we got the huge ones here on the sides, which you've already seen. That's one thing about these paintings. They're not much of a surprise. You've already seen the thumbnail. That works. That's pretty. There, I'm just putting the final touches on. Some more trees. Lots of trees in this painting. There. But actually, honestly, there's not that many in the foreground. I guess most of our trees are there in the background. Make sure when you're doing this that you get a nice solid interior of the tree and then a nice negative spaces there on the edges of the tree. It makes a difference. There. And it's okay to kind of plop it on and then go back and work with it. That's probably the easiest way to get it done. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can always go back and tweak it if you like. There we go. This is so thick it'll probably be wet next month. Probably go back next month and blend it. All right, there we go. Wipe that knife off and grab a little bit of purple. We're gonna create some beautiful shadows. And this is really it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna kind of take it to the next level, I think. This really helps to show where the light is coming from. Of course, the mountain shows us coming across like this. But I really think this is interesting. Maybe right in here. Following the slope of the land, of course. Always got to do that with your shadows. Always following the slope of the land. There we go. That's pretty. A little more shadow here. It's okay if a little bit of that color from the tree gets mixed in. As long as it's not too much. Because I am actually going to do some rocks and some grass as well. Cool. I think we can work with that. That's good for now. Yeah, who cares if we go over that tree? We got to have some snow on them anyways. Not a lot of snow. We'll lose the contrast, but we'll do a little snow maybe. It's good enough. Now, as far as, watch this, as far as the actual grass and whatnot, if you'd like to have some grass, maybe take some umber and some yellow ochre. There we go. Maybe a little tinge of red and white. And get you a nice grassy color going. Right in there. Don't overmix it. Put a little black in there if you want to. All right, see what that does. You'll see sometimes when I go down, I scoop up a little, just like a little edge of paint there. And sometimes you can just like glop it on, doesn't matter. But for this, I want less paint, so that works out. It works out pretty well. So now using a palette knife, of course. I guess I don't need to say that. We're going to place on some of these kind of midtones. And yes, I am going with the dark green. You may be wondering, why are you going with the dark green? I gotta lean over here so I can see. Got a bit of a reflection. The reason is because, yeah, there might be a little snow on these trees, but I think the snow is mostly melted off the trees. Mostly here. See, the grass is even showing through. That's mainly my thought there. So we maybe won't put that much snow on the trees. I don't know. I think it's kind of pretty as is. I wanted them to remain very... Ooh, don't get that much paint. I mean, texture is good. I don't know. People pay more for texture, so I guess it's okay. But the point is, let's go over here now. The point is, I want to save my contrast. You don't want to get rid of that beautiful contrast. Now here I'm going with an extremely light touch. If you touch down hard at all, it's going to mush. You don't want it to mush. This way it just kind of grabs the peaks of the paint and just, you know, brings off a little highlight honestly kind of instantly. See that? And if you push too hard, it just goes to mush. Hey, if something goes wrong, just scrape it off, put a little more black on. You'll never know there was an issue. It's okay to go both ways because branches are going all sorts of different ways. I think that's really pretty as is. I've dropped the knife more than once. Not today, but in the past. When doing knife things, I often drop the knife. It's because you have to hold it so loose. Just let it float in your hand. That's the trick if you want stuff like this to happen. All right, that's pretty good. All right, well, I think we're done. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. Don't forget to check out our website, DVDs and Brushline. Thanks for watching.